All right, welcome back to our next episode. In my previous videos, I demonstrated how to record data in our system. I also demonstrated how to download and search for a few reports. In this next video, we are going to touch base on data analytics, specifically for the production of eggs in poultry. So let's start. If we go to our egg stock module, how do we analyze this data? We know we have different batches of poultry in our system. We have A, we have C, we have D, and so on and so forth. So let's analyze this data and see how it could help you make a decision. Click on reports. We are going to click on performance charts. As you may see, we have the different sets of flocks in here, and all these flocks have different dates. The each flock is different, either by date or by breed. It depends on how you want to categorize your flock, but for us usually it's by the date. If we get flock in January, that's going to have its own identity and so on. So moving on, let me show you how we analyze some of this data. Okay, so we know that A and B, these are our oldest flock. As you may see, they are laying around the same amount of eggs. But how do we analyze this data? Okay, let's take an example of A. Click on A. Let's wait for the report to open. We can see that, it was doing just fine. This is really good. So how do we analyze this data? Let's take an example. Once they started laying, you may see that the percentage of laying was 0.01, and it went up, kept going up, up. As you may see, 3%, 4, 5, 7, 8, 14. So day 145, A laid at 14.8%. How do we use this data to analyze what's going on, or to make a decision? So let's check B. Day 145, what was the performance of B? Okay, let's go to B. Click on the performance chart. Let's find day 145 and see what happened. All right. Day 145. As you may see, B laid at 22.13%. Remember, these flocks are exactly the same breed and exactly the same age. So you may wonder, why did B lay at 22% while A laid at 14%? So the reason in that is management. The way A was managed is not the same way B was managed. We have two different teams that manage, and we highly suggest that those who work in one poultry house shouldn't cross into the other. That's a biosecurity tip. But that tells you that B was managed well, while A, based on the data, wasn't. So what are those things that probably were not done correctly? That's what you want to find out as a data analyst or as a farm manager. But as a data analyst, I'll find out, okay, what is the daily activities? How are these activities performed, and at what time, and so on and so forth. So from my finding, I know for sure that B, which is the flock that is performing better on this very day, was debeaked before A was debeaked. For those of you who do poultry, you know what debeaking is. So it means that A was debeaked late, B was debeaked earlier. And when you debeak these hens, what happens is they they take some time to heal. It takes them like 2 weeks, and it actually affects their laying. If they were to give you eggs next week and you debeak them today, they're probably most likely not going to give you eggs for the next 2 weeks. So that's what happened here. These were B was debanked earlier, whereas A was debanked late, and that was the significant factor that caused the production to be different in this flock, and it goes on and on. Let's take an example. If you see, let me pull out another day. Let's say day 200. On day 200, B was laying at 82%, 81%. So let's check day 200 for flock A. All right, let's take some time to open. So let's go to day 200 and see what happened with flock A. Okay, is it right here? Okay, so day 200, we see that A laid at 85%. That means A caught up with time and even surpassed B. And then you might ask yourself, why is B laying at 81 and not maybe 86 or more? Again, it goes back to the same factors I just described. You might find that B is now not being taken care of properly. We put more focus on A because it was behind, and now A has improved, B is still behind. So let's take another sample data. Let's take day 205 where A was at the peak, 92. So day 205, let's go see what happens with B. So you click back and let's go to B. That was day 205, I think. Okay. Day 205, let's see what happened here. All right, so day 205, we see that B was also at 92%. So as you may see that this flock, they have to produce around the same rate. You know, if you have a plus or minus 1 error rate, that's okay. But if you have one flock performing at like 90 and the other one is performing at 85, you have a serious problem if this flock is the exact same breed and the exact same age. So this data is really helpful moving forward because it's always going to be in your system. If you subscribe, you're always going to access this data. It doesn't go anywhere. So let's take an example of D. D is one of our newest flock. So if you click on D, let's see its performance. As you may see, they just started laying. Last month, 7%. This month, they are almost 31%. So we expect that by the end of February, they will be laying at 90% or more. But let's take an example of day 160. B laid at 31%. Day 160, B laid at D laid at 31%. So let's see what A laid at on the same day. I'm going to go back here at D just to remember the day. I just forgot the day. So day 160, D is at 31%. So let's see day 160 where A was. Okay, so day 160 for A. Let's go back. We have way too many records for A. Okay, it's the next one. Day 160. You see that A was already at 73%, whereas D is only at 31%. What is causing this huge gap in laying? All right, I'll explain this to you guys because this is very important. So first of all, it's different breeds we have. So A is totally different breed than B. So that's one of the data points you might want to consider. You know, which breed works better for you? Is it breed A, is it breed B, or breed C? So in this case, I would say breed A is working better for us. But don't use only one data point to make a decision because most likely it's not the breed issue. Maybe there is something else. And I can tell you exactly what is happening here, why these were laying at 73 on the same day, whereas the other ones, which is D, is only laying at 31%. The reason for that is because the way D was managed is not the same way A was managed. We totally had different teams. and this team was more experienced, and we thought that our team had, learned how to take care of the brooder. But again, we had a new team that was managing D, and they were behind in every single activity. They were behind in debaking. They were behind by, and I'm talking about 3 weeks behind. Being like 2 days behind in poultry is a huge time. So if you're like 3 weeks behind, it means you're going to be almost a month behind your schedule. So even the hens will be a month behind, giving you the same production. So we expect that D is going to catch up at some point, maybe by day 175, we might see a percentage of maybe 80 somewhere percent. And I'm hoping that maybe by day 200, we most likely will be seeing them at the peak. But for now, we know the reasons why B is behind. Sorry, why D is behind in the percentage of laying. It's just because these hens were really late in the management was late in doing certain things, especially the baking. The baking uh, for A was done at week 8, between week 8 and week 9, whereas for D, which is this flock that is behind, their debaking was done at week 12. So as you may see, that's a 4-week gap, and that is the reason why these are behind in laying. So it's not the breed, we know for sure, it's just the activities that were not done on time that are making these lay a little bit behind than their predecessors. So that being said, you know what to do. Next time, debake in time, make sure your management does the work in time. This is one of the ways to use the system to analyze your data. There's so many ways, and we welcome any creativity. We welcome anyone who has a different report they want to see. In the future, we want to have a side-by-side view right here where you can see the different, the previous flock as opposed to the new flock you have, just so you have all the information on one screen. And not having to go back and forth like you just saw in this very video. So that being said, we know for sure that that's one point of seeing your production. And the same applies if you want to analyze the mortality rates. You just go to the schedule here, and then you will be able to see the different flocks. Like A, this is cumulative. You see that day 745, it's at 15%. So if you have maybe this flock D on the same day, because D is only 160 days old, so we don't have too much information in here to feed, to compare here, but we can compare on day 160. uh, uh, we know that D is at 5%, but what was the mortality rate for A? So let's look for day 160 for A. So I searched for only A, and I know that day 160 is probably behind here. Okay, we are going to click right here and see. So day 159, day 160. So you see that A was only at 1.4% mortality. That means we have more mortalities with D than A. So this could be a breed issue. It could also still be a management issue. We are still collecting data. We know we had some troubles in the brooder, negligence and some other factors that actually raised that mortality high. So we are not blaming the breed at all. Most of the issues we know is management, especially for our farm. Your farm could be different, but as you may see, this data tells you exactly what's going on, and you're always going to have this information in your dashboard to make the right decisions. This being said, I've shown you the production of eggs, I've shown you the mortality. Now you can make better decisions based on this data. One other thing I'm going to show you is the flock stock, right? Here, the flock reports. How do you use this data to analyze or to make a decision? Let's take an example of D. So we look here, we know that we see the mortalities. We know that this is 23 weeks now in age. So you have a management that doesn't even know which feeds these hens are supposed to eat during this week, because the formulations are different. Some farms will have from day 0 to 6 to 1 week. This is the type of feed you feed your hens. From 1 week to 6 weeks, this is the feed. So usually they name the feeds like developer, grower, layer 1, layer 2. So as a manager or owner, you look here and you see that, okay, my flock is 23 weeks, they should be feeding a certain formulation. So you're going to inform your supervisors or store managers to formulate the feed based on the age. It is important because its chances are people are going to forget, and if you're not in the know, you might be feeding them the wrong feeds at the wrong time. They don't need to eat feeds of 0 to 1 week if they're already 23 weeks. And at a certain age, again, depending on your formulation, there is so many formulations for each farm, whatever works for you. In our farm, we have 4 different stages of formulations. I think the starter, the developer, the prelay, the layer, the end of. There's like about 5. So this is where we look and we determine that, okay, it's time to change the feeds, and communication is done, and managers sign on it to ensure that they understand that communication. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful. I'm looking at people and farmers and farms that will find this system useful. If you find this system useful, please leave a comment. We shall soon be sharing how to access the system by logging in, and you can try it out before you subscribe. We'll communicate the subscription, which will be on an annual basis. But as you may see, this system is one of the biggest and decisions you're going to actually make if you consider subscribing. But we hope you do. And thank you for watching this video. See you in the next one.